Thank you very much for having me here. Before I start, I just want to add something to my short intro of my biography, especially talking after Professor Nida Rümeling. I was working 25 years in science. I'm originally a geoscientist and biologist and a fellow of the Royal Society of Science in England. I was working a long time on the interrelations between ecology, economy, and let's say our cultural ideas of how to develop and how to shape the interrelation between our planetary sphere and human development. And a very important focus for me was to address the topic of co-evolution, to understand that we as humanity, as a specimen, are embedded in a planetary oneness, and we are more or less omniconnected, and just one part of the broad and manifold biodiversity and the plurality of the specimen we have on our planet. And due to the especially white people, European Western hybrids of having the feeling that we own our planet instead of being an integral part of it, we could, let's say, broaden a big misunderstanding in the 20th century that was based on the mechanistic idea of ruling and governing the world in the way we wish it to be. The idea that humankind is somehow let's say, the driving force of the development of our planetary integrity is a big misunderstanding. What is today mostly brought into future by the, let's say, the humanities, or we can say by the social sciences, including economy, politics, and sociology, that are expanding the false understanding of nature from the 19th century, the Newton's mechanistic idea of our planet, into the future. So today we are struggling in between the conflict, how to stabilize the dynamic interactions of the diversity and plurality of our planet Earth and our human expressions with that we interface between nature, culture, and societies by infrastructures and institutions. And secondly, how we can strengthen our planetary resilience and our future abilities by our social, economic, and political activities with which we mint and form our strategies and how we work together. So after having nearly 3 decades of work as a scientist in between several scientific institutions, I did decide to shift to economic practice, because I was realizing that especially in Germany and the European societies, we are lost in narratives. And everyone is talking about we need good storytelling, we need good narratives, but most people don't know how to act. So I thought some years ago, nearly all in respect to sustainable development is said, and now we have to act. And since then, since 10 years, we see now that acting seems to be very difficult in a world that is mostly lost in translation and in its virtuality. So I step quickly into a presentation. For that, I share my monitor with you. Okay, so it's about serving life. It's a regeneration of our livelihoods that we need to bring into future. And here I'm quoting a speech of Chief Siat Lee, who was the chief of the ethnic group of the Duwamish, and who was talking in the year 1855 to the 14th president of the United States of America, Franklin Pierce, who was asking him if the so-called North American Indians can sell their land to can sell their land to the state to the United States. And he is answering, and here you only see the German translation, but I have the English quotation here as well. He says, how can you sell the sky or the warmness of the earth? This idea seems strange to us. If we don't own the freshness of the air and the clearness of the water, how can we sell it? Everything is connected, and everything what harms our earth also harms the children of the earth. Mankind did not create the network of life. It is only a string within it. Whatever you do to the network, you do to yourself. We have to understand that everything that is living on planet Earth is pumped by external energy that has a very high entropic level that comes from the sun. And the planet Earth is just a small pearl, just one world that we have in our hand, even if it seems to us nearly endless. And the biogeosphere that we differ in the geosciences in different spheres with that we describe how the treasures, the resources, and the energetic flows of our world do interact by hydrosphere, that is everything that is connected with water, by the lithosphere, that is the core of our planet with stone and stiff and hard matter. Then we have the pedosphere, that is the coverage of our planet by our fertile soils that are from more than 60% based on life. And so the biosphere that you see here on the left side in the corner, down in the corner, the biosphere is just a very, very thin layer around this planetary globe Earth that interacts between our gas coat, the atmosphere, and with hydrosphere and the lithosphere, and that mixes up our planet all the time. And the biosphere is catching this high entropic level of energy that we are getting from the sun, and by that is building up something that we describe by the complexity of our ecosystems. And within that, we as humans are acting and interacting with our planet and we are changing the world with our ideas. But there's something more on that planet that a Jesuit theologist and also and his main profession was he was a geologist, that was Teilhard de Chardin, who described it as the noosphere, the symbolic, let's say the spiritual sphere filled with meanings and ideas by mankind, that is also part of our planet. I myself call it the anthroposphere, and it is shown here. The anthroposphere as being a universe of, let's say, ideas how to act, how to practically realize our ideas, how to use the landscapes, the forests, the animals, the wilderness, the genetical information of our planet. The anthroposphere contains more or less everything that derives from the cultural and social interactions and activities that we permanently perform as humanity within the plurality of our cultural expressions and the variety of our ethnic traditions. Out of that, our understanding of instruments of infrastructures comes. The idea of how to interface between nature and culture. The idea of what are organizations, what are the actors, and what are the benchmarks and regulations with that we try to govern and to rule our world, and how we are allowed to interact with it. We know that in the center is always our individual self, our selfishness, our personal demands, wishes, and dreams we are following. And so whatever we see, it depends on where we are and where we come from, and our way how we grab into the world, and how we manipulate the interactions of our world has a lot to do with how we understand ourselves. And very important for us is that we have a big problem. As you know, we are burning through the future of our planet. While we all know the heat is on. What you see here is a temperature spiral from the Potsdam Institute for Climate Research, where we can see that since the end of the 19th century, or the middle of the 19th century, the average temperature of our planet Earth is rising up over the year. And already in the year 2016, we are scratching on the 1.5 degrees boundary that we shall not pass. The great acceleration of the socio-economic development all over our societies and our planet ends up in Earth system trends that become more or less catastrophic for ourselves, that you can see here on the right side. I don't want to describe them in detail, because you all know about that. We are ending and addressing in a climate and ecological drama. We have reached the planetary boundaries in several dimensions. And what Albert Schweitzer described with his saying, "I'm life that wants to live in the midst of life that wants to live," is a paradigm for our future. As I see that we are running about the time, I jump forward because I don't want to end up somewhere in the middle, and I think we lost some time before. So I try to make it a bit quicker. The idea that there's no alternative is wrong. We can step out of our dynamics. And one example that you can see here is the Fifth Avenue in New York in the 19th century, where you have only one motor car, while all the others are horse-driven. I just lost the German word, the English word for it. And here now, just 13 years later, you see the same Fifth Avenue in the same, more or less in a similar perspective, full with cars, and there's only one horse car inside it. So there's a lack of understanding, and it's very difficult to get a man to understand something when his salary depends upon his not understanding it. And that was something that Upton Sinclair already mentioned decades ago. So no future is today, no future is now. And Herman Daly described in his Economics for a Full World that our economic idea that we are practicing today is coming from an empty world understanding. So our economy of the past it was very small under planetary perspective. And it was for us not a problem to produce our welfare and a permanent rising up of material goods for all humans, because let's say our planet was empty of humans and our small economic demand didn't produce any harm. As you can also see in this cartoon where you have the empty water or the empty ocean with one fisher boat on the top. In the full world, the economy is already passing the limits of our ecological productivity. So that is the full world, and the full world means the world is full of humans. And in his Economics for Full World, Herman Daly describes that if we transfer and if we go on with the strategy of an empty world into the future, we are coming to an uneconomic growth. What we have to realize, what we are realizing since the middle of the last century. So since then, we were mostly producing and maximizing robbery, and growth was not existing anymore, even if in the capitalistic misunderstanding of our world, the destruction of our common livelihoods was described as growth and as success. But that is the esoteric understanding of our parents' generation, whose main product was the destruction of the future. So it is very strange that the business as usual scenario is still very prominent in the mainstream economy, even if it's based on the destruction of its own production fundamentals. So for future has to be now. And we know now that there is a global shift that was mostly pushed on 5 years ago by a small girl called Greta Thunberg, who brought millions of children and young people into movement with the Friday for Future movement, who are advocating for a different, for a future-oriented, for a sustainable life. I'm life that wants to live in the midst of life that wants to live. We are connected. So the strengthening of all life on Earth will be the benchmark for economic success. And that means that we have to regenerate our common livelihoods. That has to be our target. I jump over the description of the commons because I believe that all of you who are listening have a good idea what common goods are. This is climate. These are the treasures of nature that we are not owning because we are part of it. And this is the art and the ideas of philosophy and of thinking and culture that we cannot own because we are co-creating it all together, and it's permanent owned by the broadness of people. What is sustainability? Sustainability means that we do not externalize any negative effects. And so sustainability starts where we externalize positive effects into the biogeosphere and into the anthroposphere. Sustainability only means a zero damage and a plus on good impact into ecosystems and also into society, but first into the ecosystem that is the base on that we are dancing. So a life-serving future means the regeneration of our common livelihoods. And I want to close with a common vision, because as naive as we all are, we often forget, while many activists are everywhere calling for a new vision, for a good narrative. We already have this narrative and we share it, but probably we are ashamed to mention it and to name it. And my daughters, for them, it is very easy to name that and to talk about it because they don't feel naive with that. And I want to close with this. So people all over the world are calling for a fundamental new orientation of human development in alignment with nature. This now is a vision that we probably share quietly and unsaid for a long time, like a small, quiet dream that we are ashamed to formulate in simplicity and naivety, but understood by all of us. It's a risk, always a personal risk. We wish a world in which all people can live together freely and peacefully, in their individuality, diversity, and in cultural wealth, embedded in the richness of an ecologically vibrant nature. We wish a world in which we humans live in peace and in dignity, in abundance and freedom, and in communities, shaping our society together with all. A world in which sick and vulnerable people, old and young, are protected. A world in which we can exchange fairly, create and develop knowledge and ourselves personally and as a human family. A world with healthy landscapes and oceans, stable food chains, a balanced climate, intact livelihoods, and good living conditions for all living beings. Aware of a global urgency facing planetary boundaries and a rising socioeconomic crisis endangering our common futures, we call for a just and sustainable future for all humans and the coming generations. This is achievable for all of us. We just have to do it. Thank you very much.